publicly to disclose the results of an internal affairs investigation ordered by me, which uncovered serious misconduct on the part of former Stoughton police officers. What I'm about to brief you on is something deeply troubling to me as a human being and as a police chief. On February 4th, 2021, 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore was found deceased in her apartment in Canton. I am not here today to talk about the subsequent investigation into Ms. Birchmore's death. Her death was investigated by the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. What I am here to talk about today is her life and how she was failed by, manipulated by, and used by people of authority that she admired and trusted right up until her final days. Ms. Birchmore was a vulnerable person who had one constant in her life since childhood: her unwavering admiration of police officers, of those serving the military, people in uniform, people with oaths and duties to protect and serve. The admiration led her to form relationships with men who were willing to take advantage of her. The media has previously reported about Ms. Birchmore and her relationship with former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell. On February 5th, 2021, the day after Ms. Birchmore's death, I ordered Deputy Chief Brian Holmes to lead a full and complete internal investigation to determine what, if any, misconduct was committed by members of the Stoughton Police Department. The death of Ms. Birchmore and the subsequent inquiries into her life and death revealed a deeply disturbing pattern of behavior toward her. I'm here today because it is my duty, a duty that I take very seriously, to report to our community on the findings of the nearly 19-month-long, complex, and resource-intensive investigation. This is my first and earliest opportunity to speak about this investigation, which has just finished and has been reviewed by counsel as recently as yesterday. The investigation, in which Deputy Chief employed the service of numerous outside private investigators and subject matter experts, has resulted in the following findings. 3 former members of the Stoughton Police Department, William Farwell, Matthew Farwell, and Robert Devine, were identified as the subjects of the Stoughton Police Department Internal Affairs case number 21-1-IA. The sustained finding involving Matthew Farwell were the following. Matthew Farwell, in violation of the Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The sustained finding involving William Farwell are the following. William Farwell, in violation of Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer, failed to conform to laws, violated data entry policies, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The sustained finding of Robert Devine were the following. Robert Devine, in violation of Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The facts of this case, after an intensive and complete investigation, are as follows. In 2010, Ms. Birchmore, then age 13, entered the Stoughton Police Department Explorer Program. It was there, as a child, that she met Matthew Farwell, an instructor in that program. The evidence demonstrates that Matthew Farwell began an inappropriate relationship with her when she was 15 and he was 27. The investigation uncovered many hundreds of digital messages and explicit exchanges between Matthew Farwell and Ms. Birchmore over the course of several years. The investigation continued from there Evidence discovered determined that at least 3 Stoughton police officers, who were all known to each other, including Matthew Farwell, his twin brother William Farwell, had inappropriate relations with Miss Birchmore. The investigation showed that William Farwell, in addition to having multiple inappropriate physical encounters with Miss Birchmore, exchanged explicit messages and photographs with Miss Birchmore while he was on duty. The evidence suggests that William Farwell also, at the very least, attempted to introduce Miss Birchmore to other men. The evidence further showed that 2 others engaged in inappropriate relations with this young woman. Robert Devine, a former deputy chief of the Stoughton Police Department who had been previously demoted to patrol officer for abusing his power, and an individual who is now a police officer in another jurisdiction. Our investigation discovered that Matthew Farwell exploited Miss Birchmore, a young woman who was 13 when she met him, until Matthew Farwell decided to end the relationship on February 1st, 2021. According to Farwell, he went to her apartment to call off the relationship and engaged in what Matthew Farwell later called a pretty nasty argument. Miss Birchmore was found dead days later. Our investigation revealed this misconduct goes back even further. Devine was part of an after-school program at Stoughton Middle School, where he and other officers were in charge of several students without supervision from members of the school district. The investigation determined that Devine had inappropriate contact with a female student in that program. Robert Devine began overseeing the Stoughton Police Department Explorer program approximately 20 years ago. When he took over, he changed the program from a traditionally scouting program to a paramilitary style program that taught aspects of policing to youth participants. Both William and Matthew Farwell were youth participants in the Explorer program under Devine. And the Farwell brothers would later take part in that same program as instructors years later, which would put them all on a course to meet Sandra Birchmore. All 3 men, the Farwell brothers and Devine, violated their oaths of office and should never have the privilege of serving any community as a police officer. Through a sustained and deliberate combination of lies, deceit, and treachery, they violated the policies and the core values of the Stoughton Police Department, not to mention human decency.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. I had that playing in the background. That was the Chief Donna McNamara from Stoughton Police. She gave this speech, this press conference, September 2022, talking about the misconduct in the Sandra Birchmore case. This is an episode in the tragic death of Sandra Birchmore series, and we are going to be talking about the internal affairs, which investigated the Stoughton officers, and that is exactly what Donna McNamara was talking about. She was revealing what the internal affairs investigation actually revealed. Those were the findings. So when we say that Robert Devine, Matthew Farwell, and William Farwell groomed and had inappropriate relations with Sandra, we're not we don't have to say allegedly because this is the truth. Like, this has been found in this police report. Why they're not in prison? I don't know. Probably because they're cops, but that would be my assumption. So we're going to read through there's a 60-page internal affairs report. First of all, I apologize for the cicadas are really loud for some reason, and we don't usually get the cicadas this loud at night. So I hope you don't hear them. Also, too, I apologize for the dark background and blah background. It's really hot. It's 90 degrees in Chicago, and I don't want to record upstairs. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to be small anyways. So you guys don't need to see the background colors and stuff. All right. So we're going to read through this 60-page report. This is going to be part one of probably two. We're going to keep it to two. I think I lied at the end of the last one and said that we were going to be talking solely on Robert Devine this week or this episode, but actually, we've got two parts of this internal affairs thing, and then we'll go into a deep dive of Robert Devine. I got excited and jumped the gun and told you guys too early. Sorry about that. So please, before we begin, hit that like button because it really helps the algorithm. It helps push this out to other individuals and it helps you as well. So let's get started. This is like Chief McNamara said in her press conference. She ordered this February 5th. And as we were reading through the police reports, we read that on February 5th. That is so Sandra Birchmore, last day she's seen alive is February 1st. Okay. She is found. They do the wellness check and they come and find the Canton Police Department find her on February 4th. Okay. Then February 5th, they start doing all their interviews and conducting, whatnots. And then they find out, they report, the police put in the report that they found out that she was going around telling people that she was pregnant with Matthew Farwell's baby. He's a cop, he's married, and she was saying that he should leave his wife and all this stuff. So she was going around telling this to everybody, and she was very excited about the baby. She was talking to people that she hadn't talked to in forever just to tell them and be excited about this pregnancy. So she was happy about it. It does seem like there. I'm not going to say that there is evidence. I'm going to say that there are witnesses who have said that it is possible maybe she was trying to get pregnant, but I don't know. And we won't know unless other people corroborate that. I think only one person said that, maybe two. I'm not sure. Because we read through a lot. There were a lot of documents in the police reports as well. Anyways, let's get started. Sorry for rambling. So Chief McNamara orders this February 5th. She orders this internal investigation. Thank God. If I hope that if a male were in this position, they would have done the same thing. But I can't say that I'd be confident in the police departments in Massachusetts to do the right thing because I haven't seen it yet. All right, so this is from Deputy Chief Holmes. February 8th. This is regarding a report completed and submitted on August 29th regarding an IA report. Chief McNamara, pursuant to your directive of February 5th, 2021, to conduct this investigation, I hereby submit the following report into the matter of the unattended loss of Sandra Birchmore's life and into the possible violations of the policies, procedures, rules, and regulations of the Stoughton Police Department. So, right there, it's not just that they're investigating Sandra's homicide, and I'm going to call it a homicide because we have a pathologist who has come back, an independent pathologist has come back and said homicide, not self induced. All right, so they put in the same sentence this is in the matter of Sandra Birchmore's homicide, but it also has to do with the policies, procedures, and whatnot, and if they were followed by the Stoughton Police Department. So it's a two for one. Like you got to have both of them to see if there's some kind of misconduct regarding that situation. So we're going to look at the policies and compare to see who acted appropriately and who didn't. All right. So investigative directive. This administrative investigation was conducted to determine any violations of policy, procedures, rules, and regulations of the Stoughton Police Department by any of its employees. If anybody's questioning what this document is for, that is it right there. This administrative investigation was conducted to determine any violations of policies, procedures, rules, and regulations of any or by any of its employees, the Stoughton Police Department. So this investigation began as a result of and they keep calling it an unattended loss of life, which I guess in this regard, they're going to say that because they suspected that she took her own life, but we know more now. I'll just say that. It was, at the time, they just took it as, oh yeah, she just did it to herself. And they didn't really investigate it as anything more than a self taking out of this world. All right, so investigative, not that that's funny, but just the way that I said it, because I try so hard not to say the key words on YouTube that then you just like make up some other stupid word like unalive. Anyways, so where was I? This investigation began as a result of the unattended loss of life investigation that was conducted by the Massachusetts State Police into the homicide of Sandra Birchmore of Canton, Massachusetts, formerly of Stoughton. So she was living in Canton at the time. She was from Stoughton and a former participant in the Stoughton Police Explorers Program. Investigative reports and evidence in this case was shared by the Massachusetts State Police concerning personal relationships that members of the Stoughton Police Department had with Miss Birchmore. So, this is just an introduction of what this investigation is about. Now you know. It's about the employees. What did they do to Sandra? This investigation began as a result of the. Wait, did I read that already? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Throughout the course of this investigation, there was an understanding between the Massachusetts State Police and me. So this is again that Chief Deputy Holmes. So between the Mass State Police and me, that should any evidence be discovered concerning criminal culpability involving anybody connected in any way to this case, that I will refer that information to the MSP for further investigation. So the Stoughton Police Department are working with the MSP and they're saying we're going to share our information if we come upon something. Per policy, the chief of police received weekly updates as to the progress of this investigation, and on occasion with more frequency when relevant. A determination was made in the early stages of this investigation that disclosure of allegations to employees who would eventually be identified would jeopardize this investigation. An approximate timetable was provided and updated as information developed. Some delays in the processing of data was beyond the control of the investigator. Any dispositions or findings are based upon the preponderance of evidence standard of proof. Introduction and background of investigation. On February 4th, 2021, the Canton Police Department responded to the sudden loss of life call. The call originated as a well-being check from Redacted. FYI, there's going to be a lot of redacted. All right, so the call originated as a well-being check from Redacted, the employer of the victim, Sandra Birchmore. The call came here to the Stoughton Police Department as Birchmore's address of record was 40 Holbrook Avenue in Stoughton. Further communication directed that the Canton Police do the well-being check at 3307 Windsor Woods Way. That's the Canton Woods Apartments. As Birchmore had moved there, reportedly, Birchmore had not reported to work in several days. Remember Monday, I believe it was Monday was that, no, it was a Sunday. Hold on, pause. Let me just double. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So February 1st, 2021 is a Monday. So she was found Thursday, and by Friday they were investigating it. All right. So on February 4th, 2021, the Canton responded to the call. It originated as a well-being check. The call came from blah, blah, blah. Okay. Reportedly, Birchmore had not reported to work in several days. So that's Monday. Well, Monday is when it happened, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday is when her work was like, hey, she hasn't been in 3 days. Why would they wait 3 days, though? I don't understand why they waited that long to have a wellness check. Wouldn't you do it like that first time she didn't show up? And then maybe, if not that first, then definitely the second? Because it probably wasn't like her to just not show up to work, but I don't know. Maybe they were used to it. I have no idea. All right, so the victim, Ms. Birchmore, was pronounced deceased at the scene by a Canton paramedic. She lost her life from redacted. We have no idea what that says, but it probably self-induced. Somehow it says that. All right. So on or about February 5th, 2022, you were contacted by a detective from the Massachusetts State Police Unit that is assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. The nature of the call was to notify you that a former member of the Stoughton Police Explorers program now terminated as of 2016, of this department had redacted. The trooper related that the former police explorer and victim Sandra Birchmore had been in a redacted relationship with Detective Matthew Farwell for an extended period of time. He indicated that on the day Ms. Birchmore redacted, the other troopers and the Canton Police Department responded as they ordinarily would to any unattended loss of life. So when somebody loses their life and no one else is around, they call it that just because there's no one else around. And I don't know why it gets categorized by that, but maybe it does because you have to determine the manner of how they lost their life. I'm not really sure. But, anyways, so the MSP has been contacted by friends and family of the victim, Ms. Birchmore, alerting the detective unit to the relationship between Matthew Farwell and Birchmore. Concerns were, what were the concerns? It's all redacted. I would like to know the concerns. All right, so it was further relayed that the Massachusetts Medical Examiner's Office took jurisdiction of the body and later confirmed that the victim, Ms. Birchmore, redacted. The preliminary investigative information showed Detective Farwell on the video surveillance of Ms. Birchmore's apartment approximately 4 days before she was discovered deceased. Farwell spent about 20 minutes inside, it was 28, inside the apartment. Further investigation by MSP indicated that Farwell had known the victim, Ms. Birchmore, since she was approximately 13 years of age and began redacted relationship with her at the age of 15. So this is what they found in their investigation. So shouldn't he be in prison facing charges? Text messaging developed from the MSP investigation indicated that Farwell had redacted with Sandra Birchmore when she was age 15 and that Farwell redacted. The substance of the conversation shows that Farwell corroborates this action. Ooh, what action? Anyways, the investigation by MSP did not yield sufficient probable cause with which to charge Matthew Farwell with the crime at that time. Also, not sufficient probable cause, but everyone and anyone said that they were together. Anyone that knew Sandra, because Sandra was telling everybody about her relationship with him. So if he thought she was going to keep her mouth quiet, he was wrong. And good for her. Good for her for speaking her truth. Ultimately, the MSP investigation would determine through the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner that the cause of loss of life of the victim, Sandra Birchmore, redacted, of course. Analysis of the victim's communication shows extensive dialogue between herself and Matthew Farwell when Matt Farwell told her that he had arrived at her apartment and she told him to come up. Matthew Farwell was the last person to see Sandra Birchmore alive. This is the Stoughton investigation into this. So this is not conjecture. This is not speculation. This is a report that the Stoughton Police Department did on their own people. This is amazing. Like, you don't get to see this every day. You don't see it every day. And it's unfortunate because usually cops don't tell on other cops. Given the volume of data, the town authorized the assistance of outside investigators. PI Paul La Italian, I don't know how else to say that, was initially brought in to assist, and we would later bring PI Robert Fries and Michael Bates as an IT consultant. All investigators are retired ranking members of the MSP with extensive investigative experience. Much of the initial investigative steps were centered on a PDF document that contained a download of data from the victim Sandra Birchmore's laptop. Oh, so they bring in, first of all, I want to stop and say, so because of the amount of data, there were a lot of text messages and things that were going back and forth. They bring in three people, three additional people just to work on this case. Much of the initial investigative steps were centered on this PDF, that came from her laptop. The laptop had been synchronized with her cellular phones. Phones. Did she have multiple phones? I don't know. I'll have to read into it. All right, a later analysis of the cell phones provided a data pool that was less cumbersome and easier to identify users and people with whom the victim, Sandra Birchmore, was having discussions. Data was provided to me in Cellbrite format for easier and more organized analysis. The investigation would later show that Matthew Farwell had a long-standing redacted with the victim, Sandra Birchmore, and that his twin brother, Officer William Farwell, had an inappropriate relationship. I'm assuming they're all going to say inappropriate or physical relationships with the victim, Sandra Birchmore. The investigation also determined by a preponderance of the evidence that Officer Robert Devine had a redacted relationship with the victim, Sandra Birchmore. So your other chief deputy was being inappropriate with young girls in his Explorers program. The investigation shows evidence that redacted behavior took place between Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore and that Robert Devine was engaged, redacted, of Matthew Farwell and William Farwell as his understudies. Well, that's interesting. Matt Farwell and William Farwell are treated as Divine's understudies, apparently. Contact was made with some participants of the former Stoughton Police Department Police Explorers Program, or they're calling it SPEC, to determine if any inappropriate behaviors, actions, or redacted took place beyond what was made apparent through evidence initially obtained. We also interviewed department members and a family member of Sandra Birchmore. Okay, so they're telling you how they got all of their information. Notwithstanding the resignation of any prospective targets of this investigation, interviews were drafted and strategically planned. To the furthest extent possible, we exhausted all investigated resources. The investigation represents a crossroads between the statutorily authorized investigative authority of the MSP detectives assigned to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, and the appropriate sharing of information in order to carry out a comprehensive administrative investigation. Whoa, that was a long sentence. At a point early in this investigation, there was an understanding that the MSP still maintains primary jurisdiction over any criminal activity, and the administrative investigation could reveal. To that extent, the understanding was that if I found evidence of a crime, I would stop the administrative process and refer this case, as well as the evidence, back to the MSP. One witness came forward alleging that redacted by Matthew Farwell. This matter was referred back to the MSP, and the victim in this case did not cooperate with the interview process. I conducted, probably because they were scared of what Matthew Farwell could do to them. I conducted a review of administrative investigation of Robert Devine that was conducted by investigator Paul White. We got another investigator now. I reviewed the findings as well as the entire case file. I conducted personnel file reviews of redacted Matthew Farwell and William Farwell. So maybe some other individuals who didn't, but there was nothing wrong, so they just didn't name them, perhaps. Several civilian witness interviews were conducted. A conclusion of fact is detailed below. So here is that conclusion of fact. Executive Summary, Matthew Farwell. Matthew Farwell has been a sworn member of the Stoughton Police Department from March 27, 2012 until the date of his resignation, April 1st, 2022. He was a member of the Stoughton Police Explorers Explorers Group during his teenage years and had been designated the rank of Deputy Chief within the program in 2002. After high school, he entered the military and later acted as a guest instructor within the Explorers program at the request or direction of Robert Devine. Sandra Birchmore was a member of the Stoughton Police Explorers Group beginning in 2010 when she was 13 years old. She was on the standby list for the program in 2010, was a member in 2011, and remained in the group until 2016, the year she graduated from Stoughton High School. Sandra Birchmore was found deceased at her apartment in Canton on February 4th, 2021, after a well-being check when she didn't report to work. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office conducted an investigation, and it was determined the manner of her loss of life redacted. So they've even redacted in this report. Maybe they don't want to stick to the fact that they went with a homicide, or they didn't go with a homicide. Rather, they went with taking one's own livelihood. All right, so on February 6th, Matthew Farwell was interviewed by the Massachusetts State Police as part of the Sandra Birchmore investigation. During the interview, Matthew Farwell stated that he knew Sandra, quote, for about 10 years. And then, which is true because he met her when she was 13 and she was 23 at the time, so that's spot on. And they met when she was in the Explorer program of the Stoughton Police Department. He knew that she had previously redacted. No idea. All right, Matthew Farwell stated to the state police that he began redacted relationship with Sandra Birchmore early in 2020. He admitted they redacted. In December 2020, Sandra told him redacted. He stated that he last saw her on the evening of February 1st, 2021, when he went to her apartment to end their relationship. So, what is the odds? What are the odds? Sorry. What are the odds that the same night he goes over there and I totally lost my train of thought. That he goes over there to break up with her. Sorry. He goes over there to break up with her. And then she just magically, for him, takes her own life because it's an easy solution for Matt Farwell because him and his wife are having a baby the next day, February 2nd. So he came over on February 1st to get rid of his little problem, which was Sandra and her baby. That's what he did. That's speculation. You can, I will say allegedly there, but I mean, if it quacks like a duck. All right, so during the state police investigation into Sandra's loss of life, there was an analysis of her devices, cell phone, laptop, and social media platforms. This part of the investigation reveals that Matthew Farwell was in contact with Birchmore by text message going back to at least 2020. During many of their text communications, the topic of discussion were redacted. So I wonder if it was in kind of inappropriate stuff to be talking about with a child. All right. There had been hundreds of text messages between Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore that had been reviewed as part of this investigation. Of note, there was a text message exchange between Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore on February 11th, 2020. So this was a whole year before this happened. Specifically, the context of one text message refers to the date of redacted. M. Farwell text number 6 indicates that Matthew Farwell redacted. Within a narrative of text number 6, Matthew Farwell acknowledged that redacted. Man, I want to know what's under these boxes. Wish I could move them. All right, so in another text dated February 11th, 2020, Birchmore says redacted. Matt Farwell replied redacted. This text message is marked M. Farwell text number 6. In the following text, Birchmore cites the date redacted and added redacted. Farwell replied with I think that's a wink face, and then me too. This text is marked Farwell number 7. On the same date, Sandra Birchmore texted redacted and Matt Farwell replied redacted. Okay, so now we really understand what's going on in their relationship, don't we? By all the redacteds. In another text message between Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore, Birchmore says redacted, to which Farwell replied, me too. Okay, we get to see his reply, but we don't get to see what she says. This text message was on June 19th, 2020, and is marked M. Farwell, text number 3. The investigation has determined that Sandra Birchmore's date of birth was May 13th, 1997, and that she was 15 years old on April 10th, 2023. For the full context of the text messages, see Exhibit 2. Okay, and all those other exhibits, which I don't believe we have. All right, so Matthew Farwell resigned from his position with the Stoughton Police Department on March 11th, 2022. Remember, Sandra Birchmore's life was lost in 2021, February 2021. So a little over a year later, he resigns with the resignation to take effect on April 1st, 2022. He resisted sitting for an interview in this investigation. So he resisted sitting for an interview. That's your livelihood. This is your job. This is how you bring home money. And he refuses to sit for an interview. What does that tell you? The investigation has determined that Matt Farwell violated Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations as listed below. Maybe he didn't talk because he already knew they were going to get him. So he's like, I might as well just keep my mouth shut and they're not going to get me on anything more, perhaps. I don't know. It's a strategy going in there saying, I'm not giving up anything I know, and the state's going to have to give up all of their tips and info if they want me to cooperate. Findings regarding the allegation that Officer Matthew Farwell demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer in violation of Section 1, the Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations. This allegation is sustained. So, what does that mean? Oh, sustained is like the designation that they put on the allegation, which I'm not really sure what that means. Hold on. Oops, sorry. So sustained, when you are applying it to an internal investigation finding, it means that sustained is defined as the allegation is true and the member's action was inconsistent with policy. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. So sustained is meaning like, yes, this is the charge. We find that the allegations are true. All right, analysis. Matthew Farwell demonstrated immoral, improper, disorderly, or intemperate personal conduct that reflects discredit upon the officer himself. That reflects badly on himself. He discredited discredited himself upon his fellow officers or upon the Stone Police Department. The investigation has revealed that Matthew Farwell redacted relationship with Sandra Birchmore was when she was 15 years of age. So it's true. It is true. He was having inappropriate relations with her. This is a finding. It is sustained. That's what that means. It's true. The relationship continued for many years and included interactions and communications while Farwell was on duty. So he was calling her and having her come and do, you know, certain things with him in his squad car. Gross, 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 gross. All right, so regarding the allegation of Officer Matthew Farwell violated Section 1 of the Stoughton Police Department Rules and Regulations, this allegation is not sustained. There is insufficient evidence to prove or disprove this allegation. Really? Regarding the allegation, well, what is the allegation? Okay, so analysis on the dates of February 11th, 2020 and June 19th, 2020, Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore engaged in text messaging in which they discussed the date of redacted. Content of the text message indicate that Farwell and Birchmore redacted. Matthew Farwell was a sworn member of the Stoughton Police Department on that date. I really want to take this and do like a Mad Lib or something. Like, everybody fill in the redacted with your own words. I don't know, it's so ridiculous that there's so many redacteds. In order to have sustained findings of this allegation, investigators would need the testimony of Sandra Birchmore, who is deceased. Well, that's just crap. That's crap. Regarding the allegation that Officer Matthew Farwell demonstrated incompetence when he failed to demonstrate sound judgment in violation of Section 3 of the Stoughton Police Department Rules of Regulations, this allegation is sustained. So, another sustained. Analysis. On the date of June 7th, 2020, Matthew Farwell failed to demonstrate sound judgment when he engaged in texting with Sandra Birchmore while on duty for the Stoughton Police Department. Content of the messages was that he requested Birchmore to meet him on Walnut Street in redacted while he was on duty. And like I said, he was probably um, having relations with her while on duty. Regarding the allegation that Officer Matthew Farwell was untruthful in violation of Section 4 of the Stoughton Police Department Rules and Regulations, this allegation is sustained. Again, that's good. That's 3 sustains now. On February 6th, 2021, Matthew Farwell was interviewed by the Massachusetts State Police regarding the loss of Sandra Birchmore's life. During the interview, Farwell admitted to redacted. All the good stuff is redacted in this darn document. I'm like getting annoyed. All right, so a review of the text messages between Matt Farwell and Sandra Birchmore shows that he was not truthful in describing the extent of their redacted. Regarding the allegation of Mr. Farwell failed in his attention and devotion to duty in violation of Section 7 Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations. This allegation is another sustained. Yay. Analysis. On the dates of June 7th, 2020, Matthew Farwell failed in his attention and devotion to duty when he engaged in texting with Sandra Birchmore while on duty for the Stone Police Department. The content of the text messages was that he requested Birchmore meet him on Walnut Street and redacted. I'm thinking he asked her for some kind of favor, some kind of physical favor, if you know what I mean. All right, so William Farwell, the twin brother of Matthew. William Farwell had been a sworn officer of Stoughton Police Department since March 21st, 2017, until the date of his resignation from the department on August 1st, 2022. He was a member of the Stoughton Police Explorers Program during his teenage years and had been designated the rank of lieutenant within the program in 2002. After high school, he entered the military and later enacted as a guest instructor within the Explorers program at the request of direction of Robert Devine. Again, same thing as his brother. He was invited to be a guest instructor for the Explorers program by none other than Robert Devine. Sandra Birchmore was a member of the Stoughton Police Explorers group beginning in 2010 when she was 13 years old. She was on the standby list for the program in 2010 and then she became a member in 2011 and remained in the program until 2016, the year she graduated from Stoughton High School. Sandra Birchmore was found deceased at her apartment in Canton on February 4th, 2021, after a well-being check when she didn't report to work. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office conducted an investigation and it was determined the manner of death was redacted. On February 11th, 2021, William Farwell was interviewed by the Massachusetts State Police as part of the Sandra Birchmore investigation. During the interview, William Farwell stated that he first met Sandra about 10 years earlier. Same MO, same thing. He's going to have similar answers when he was in the Explorers program. In 2018, while he was assigned to paid detail, Sandra approached him and they began to talk about her interest in joining the Army. Farwell put her in touch with an Army recruiter, and Sandra began to contact him on a regular basis. And it is alleged that things were going on with this Army recruiter as well when she was underage. All right, so William Farwell admitted during his state police interview that he had a redacted with Sandra going back about 2 years. So they're claiming, both William and Matt claim, oh, we were only dating her for 2 years, but it's an on again, off again, and we only, were physical about 2 to 3 times. They both said the same thing. So I don't know how that's going to win them many points. But they both want to include that, oh, yeah, I was only with her for 2 years because at this point she's 23 and they could say, she was like 21 when they first started dating her, which is a lie, as we know. So, where were we? The relationship ended with this William Farwell when Sandra approached him and his family at a 4th of July event. After she approached his family, Farwell blocked her on social media, but they stayed in touch off and on. The last time, redacted. During the state police investigation into Birchmore's loss of life, there was an analysis of her devices, cell phone, laptop, social media. The part of the investigation revealed that William Farwell was in contact with Birchmore by text message going back to at least April of 2020. And then a bunch redacted. Some of the content has communications in which William Farwell encouraged Sandra Birchmore, redacted. And that's a big redacted. And these are big things. Like, I want to know what he encouraged her to do. I think he was encouraging her to meet up with other men. I think he was playing a little matchmaker with other men that he could um I don't know what the right word is. Uh, basically pimp her out. without the actual exchange of cash between hands. But basically, that's what he was doing, allegedly, because it's redacted, so I can't tell you for sure. So there is information in some text messages that Farwell is either working a shift or paid detail while he is exchanging redacted text messages with Birchmore. The dates and times of these text messages were compared to attendance and paid detail records and revealed the following. April 19th, 2020. William Farwell was assigned to a midnight to 8:12 to 8 a.m. patrol shift and exchanged text messages with Sandra Birchmore, which redacted. The text messages began at 6:47 a.m. and continued past 8 a.m. end of shift time. I'm assuming that these are inappropriate conversations or inappropriate things that they're texting back and forth that he shouldn't be texting to a, a young girl. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm assuming is in these redacteds, but I don't want to assume. All right, so April 29th, 2020, William Farwell was assigned to a midnight, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we said that already. He exchanged texts between um, 4:39 and 8 a.m., which was the end of his shift. April 29th, William Farwell was assigned to a paid detail from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Same thing, redacted text messages, which began during his midnight shift, continued throughout the time he worked the detail. May 6th, William Farrell was assigned to a midnight to 8 patrol and exchanged text messages with Sandra, redacted. Text messages began at 6:42 a.m. and continued until 7:25 a.m. December 21st, 2020, William Farwell was assigned to a paid detail from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. He exchanged text messages with Sandra Birchmore, which redacted. The text messages occurred throughout the morning hours and continued until 1:49 p.m. At 11:04 a.m., Birchmore sent Farwell, redacted. At 11:38 a.m., Farwell sent Birchmore, redacted. So I'm assuming they sent each other some nice pictures. All right, so regarding the allegation that Officer William Farwell demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer in violation of Section 1 of the Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, this allegation is sustained. Analysis. On the dates of April 19th, twice on the 29th, May 6th, December 21st, William Farwell demonstrated immoral, improper, disorderly, or intemperate personal conduct that reflects discredit upon the officer himself, upon his fellow officers, or upon the Stoughton Police Department. On the above dates, William Farwell, while on duty, exchanged redacted with Sandra Birchmore. So you can leave it to your imagination what they exchanged. Regarding the allegation that Officer William Farwell violated Section 1 for conformance of laws, this allegation is sustained. On the same dates and more, William coerced Sandra Birchmore via text message, redacted. Coerced. Coerced. They could have used convinced, tried to convince, you know, asked for. No, they used the word coerced, which means that they made her do it. They talked her into it so much so that she did it. On the dates of all of these dates, Matthew Farwell coerced Sandra Birchmore via text message regarding the allegation that Officer William Farwell demonstrated incompetence when he failed to demonstrate sound judgment in violation of Section 3 of the SPD rules and regulations. This allegation is sustained. So another sustained. Yay. On the dates, William Farwell failed to demonstrate sound judgment when he engaged in texting with Sandra Birchmore while on duty for the SPD. The content of the text messages redacted. Regarding the allegation that Officer William Farwell was untruthful in violation of Section 4 of the Stoughton Police Department. This allegation is sustained. On February 11th, 2021, William Farwell was interviewed by the Massachusetts State Police regarding the investigation into Sandra Birchmore. During the interview, Farwell admitted to redacted. A review of the text messages between Farwell and Birchmore shows that he was not truthful in describing redacted. He stated during the interview that he last saw Sandra Birchmore during December 2020. The text message exchanges indicated blank in the parking lot of her apartment building after midnight on January 10th, 2021. Wow. These a-holes. I do not like them. Regarding the allegation that Officer William Farwell failed in his attention and devotion to duty, sustained. Analysis of a bunch of dates. William Farwell failed in his attention and devotion to duty when he engaged in texting with Sandra Birchmore while on duty for the SPD. And the content of the messages is redacted, of course. We can't know the good, the juicy, the info, the lies that they're saying. Regarding the allegation that Officer Farwell, William Farwell, violated some data entry policy of the SPD, this is also sustained. This is obviously a different charge. Matt Farwell didn't get this charge. On the dates, well, it's not a charge necessarily, it's just a finding, I guess. It's a finding or a conclusion. On the dates of October 10th, 2019 and November 4th, 2019, William Farwell conducted a CJIS query of Sandra Birchmore on a Stoughton Police Department computer. Bam, that is grounds for firing. You shouldn't be looking up anything unless it's associated with an official case. So the CJIS query was not associated with any type of official police business. So he was just looking her up to look her up. Well, I'm sure he had another reason besides that, not just to look her up, but maybe to see his own, um, to see if any complaints, to see if she ever spoke out about what was going on, maybe, and to see if other officers maybe got pointed at or fingered, for doing this or what have you. Maybe he was just curious to see. I wonder. Oh, he does look up himself. Okay, so regarding the allegation, Officer Farwell violated all this stuff from SPD. This is also sustained. William Farwell conducted CJIS queries on himself on 24 occasions using a Stoughton Police Department computer. This CJIS query was not associated with any type of official police business. The dates on which he conducted these queries are as follows. I'm not going to read them all, but you can see there 24 times he searched himself and he searched Sandra on 2 occasions just to see if there were any complaints or anything about, oh man, that's a lot. It goes on to the second page. Even after she was gone, he was still searching. Wow, because like, in February, the homicide occurred in February, and then March and April, he looked himself up again twice. All right, now we're moving on to Robert Devine. Robert Devine was a sworn member of the Stoughton Police Department from October 4th, 1999 until his resignation on August 16th, 2022. He was the designated officer in charge of the Stoughton Police Explorers from the years 2002 to 2014. Sandra Birchmore was a member of the Stoughton Police Explorers group beginning in 2010 when she was 13. Okay, we've got these facts down now. We should. She was on the standby list for the program. She became a member the next year. She remained in the program until 2016 when she graduated from high school. During the course of this investigation, various persons have described Sandra Birchmore as redacted. Really, we can't even see how they described her. Sandra Birchmore was found deceased at her apartment in Canton on February 4th, 2021, after a well-being check when she didn't report to work. The Norfolk County District Attorney's Office conducted an investigation and it was determined redacted. During the state police investigation into Birchmore's loss of life, there was an analysis of her devices, yada, yada, yada. This part of the investigation revealed that Sandra Birchmore had sent text messages to William Farwell informing him that, redacted, Robert Devine. She also sent Matthew Farwell, redacted. No idea what she sent, but maybe she was messing with them both, playing games with them both. Good, they deserve it because of what they did to her. The investigation later, I'm just joking. I don't think that happened at all. All right, so the investigation later revealed there was direct contact between Devine and Birchmore by Facebook Messenger between November 27th and February 1st. During some of their Facebook Messenger communications, the nature of the conversation was that Devine and Birchmore redacted. There was also at least one instance where they met when Devine was on duty and redacted. Screw you, black boxes. Findings. Regarding the allegation that Officer Robert Devine demonstrated incompetence when he failed to demonstrate sound judgment, that's sustained. On the date of December 21st, Robert Devine failed to demonstrate sound judgment when he engaged in Facebook Messenger communications with Sandra Birchmore while on duty for the Stoughton Police Department. The content of these text messages was that he requested Birchmore to meet him at the Chateau restaurant, redacted. Regarding the allegation that Robert Devine was untruthful, this is sustained. On April 8th, 2022, Robert Devine was interviewed by Paul La Italian and Robert Fries at the MPTC Training Academy in Randolph. Mr. La Italian and Mr. Fries were acted as delegates of Chief of Police Donna McNamara during this interview. Nice. So consider them me, Buster, when you're in that interview room. During the interview, Robert Devine continually denied that he had any type of contact or relationship with Sandra. When informed that at the age or at the stage of the investigation, we hadn't found any direct communications between Devine and Birchmore, he replied, "Because you won't find it." Interesting. But they did because they found Facebook Messenger communications. So they did. Regarding the allegation that Officer Robert Devine failed in his attention and devotion to duty, sustained. On the date of December 21st, 2020, Robert Devine failed to demonstrate attention and devotion to duty when he engaged in Facebook Messenger communications with Sandra Birchmore while on duty for the Stoughton Police Department. Content of the text messages was that he requested Birchmore to meet him at the Chateau restaurant, redacted. The communications indicated that Devine arrived at the Chateau restaurant and that Birchmore was on her way to meet him there. Investigative actions. On February 23rd, 2021, I, the person writing this report, opened a case file as a collection point for this case investigation. I queried all records pertaining to Sandra within the department's in-house computer database known as IMC. After a review of all records, I administratively locked access to these records with exception to access by Chief McNamara, me, and Detective Sergeant O'Connor. I gave a verbal directive to Detective Sergeant O'Connor that if any records requests came in for Sandra, for the chief or I to be notified. On February 24th, 2021, Detective Matthew Farwell was placed on administrative leave. So he was placed on leave quickly. I mean, relatively 20 days, 19 days. I was assisted by Detective Sergeant O'Connor. At that time, Detective Farwell turned in his equipment and department property as ordered by the memo for administrative leave. On February 26, 2021, I took the IMC access control thumb drive of Matthew Farwell and had retired executive assistant Mary DeCastro verify that the thumb drive was in fact the IMC access and control drive. Ms. DeCastro verified that it was. The drive was kept in the box that is secured in my office. Painting a little chain of command there. On March 2nd, 2021, I prepared an inventory of the property taken from Matthew Farwell and left the memo for you. On Monday, February 15th, I received communication redacted. He was sending documents and included letters from the victim, Ms. Birchmore, and other communications that, redacted, was forwarding to me for the purpose of cooperating with this department's internal investigations, internal affairs investigation. On Tuesday, March 16th, 2021, I left a message for redacted. I spoke to Redacted on Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. As an introduction, Redacted, I discussed with Redacted for Redacted understanding how the internal affairs process operates. Whoa. Okay. So everything in that sentence is redacted, every few words. But as an introduction, he discussed with them his understanding how the internal affairs process operates. All right. Redacted told me that Redacted had shared 4 full file boxes of documents that were Ms. Birchmore's property recovered from her apartment. Redacted turned those boxes over to MSP. Lieutenant Fanning later shared with me some personal notes that he took from the boxes that he thought may be relevant to this case. I reviewed the documents, which were mainly handwritten notes to people with whom she had previous relationships. On Monday, April 26th, I delivered Detective Farwell's department-issued cell phone to Trooper Kevin Tufts of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office to be delivered to the investigation trooper, Sergeant Fanning. Well, what is he going to do? So they want the contents of this phone. They want this phone and the data dump of this phone to go to Sergeant Fanning. So, well, he's going to be overseeing it or taking this piece of evidence on. So, anyways, all right. So this was shared in cooperation with their unattended loss of life investigation. Yeah. So Fanning, there you go. We are watching him as well. Sergeant Fanning, John Fanning. So I recently have been looking a little more into him, and there's some issues. There's some serious issues that might be going on in this guy's head. And he might be a serial um, offender when it comes to SAing people, men or women. He doesn't care. Doesn't matter. So that's Sergeant Fanning, and he's all about the power. And he is overseeing the internal investigation. This is crap. So how good is the internal investigation going to be if Sergeant Fanning is going through the data? Anyways, and good luck. Good luck, guys. Sergeant Fanning needs to go. Lieutenant Tully needs to go. All of these people need to be gone on MSP. On Friday, July 30th, 2021, you and I met with the district attorney, the first assistant DA, Sergeant Fanning, Lieutenant Medaliano, and Trooper Matthew Dunn of the Massachusetts State Police. I believe Dunn was writing all the police reports in the Birchmore case, or not all of them, but a lot of them. On Friday, September 3rd, 2021, after having previously received authorization from the town manager, I met with Captain retired Paul La Italian. Mr. La Italian is a retired captain of the MSP and now works as an independent private investigator and consultant. I provided a brief overview of the Birchmore Farwell matter. He signed a non disclosure agreement at my request, and I provided him with copies of several documents. The reports of the MSP were provided along with several pages of notes and journals that were kept by Sandra. On Thursday, September 30th, I met with Sergeant Fanning of the MSP ISU. I was given a thumb drive that contained evidence from the unattended loss of life investigation of the victim, Sandra Birchmore. A file labeled evidence contained redacted. Another file that was a PDF was titled Blacklight Case Birchmore. The file contained 50,000 pages of communications that were held from Birchmore's computer. Pulled from Birchmore's computer. The computer had been synced with her cell phone. The files were conversations, text messages, images, and various forms of communication with her contacts. The document was challenging to review in that it was not in chronological order and messages were duplicated. On Thursday, September 30th, 2021, I conducted a preliminary review of the thumb drive and observed many of the conversations redacted. I notified Chief McNamara and the town manager by email that I would be reviewing the files of this nature for investigative purposes. So that's when he did his initial preliminary review of the thumb drive of all these documents that were handed over. On Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, I met with PI La Italian and he requested that I sign a document from his investigation service. The document stated that he was receiving a flash drive redacted and that the purpose of his viewing it would be for investigative purposes. The letter also indicated that the files would not be copied and would be returned to me upon completion of this investigation. I signed the document and took a copy for the case file. On Wednesday, October 6th, 2021, I met Sergeant Fanning of the Office of the District Attorney, and I received from him Sandra Birchmore's MacBook Air. The laptop was placed into my custody file for later review. On Thursday, November 4th, 2021, I met with PI La Italian and we conducted a strategic review of a thumb drive that contained a file named Blacklight Report and then a bunch of numbers. This file was received from the MSP ISU and was the downloaded file from the laptop of Sandra Birchmore. The computer had been reportedly synchronized with her cell phone. During the review, we observed and discussed conversations between William Farwell, and a recruiter from the Army National Guard who was believed to be Birchmore's recruiting officer. He identified conversations that would be of interest to the U.S. military. We also noted that there were photographs and videos redacted that had been exchanged between Birchmore and William and Matthew. On Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, I reviewed all available files that had been kept archived in the department's record storage. These files were in the W.B. Mason box labeled Explorers and had been placed there by me after I moved into my office in 2017. Previous to this, the files had been kept in the office that I currently occupy by the former Deputy Chief, now Officer Robert Devine. Robert Devine was a Deputy Chief, remember, and he got demoted, so now he's on, well, not now, but at this point in time, he's on desk duty. Devine had been in charge of the Stoughton Police Explorers program in 2002 until approximately 2014. Among the students of the earlier classes were Matthew and William, and later Sandra. I located paperwork that. Sorry, my dog's loud when on the hardwood. I located paperwork that had these names on it, as well as class syllabi and other related documents that could be further used through the course of the investigation. On Wednesday, November 12th, I conducted a review of all related documents as referenced on November 9th. On Thursday, December 2nd, PI La Italian met and I continued this investigation. I think he means we met. La Italian PI La Italian and I met and continued this investigation. On Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, I met and conferred with Redacted. I served him notice that the Redacted. Awesome. Redacted would be witness in this case number or notice Exhibit 7. I discussed in limited scope that the case without citing names of involved or personnel and spoke in general terms. I advised him that a subject of this investigation has procedural due process rights and that I am also bound by the confidentiality of the policy concerning internal affairs. I discussed that Redacted has direct knowledge of the relevant parts of this investigation and that he is a material witness. I discussed that he would be allowed to bring a representative with his for the witness interview. Redacted inquired as if he should place Redacted on administrative leave, and I told him that, in my opinion, no, he should not do that. I also advised him that if during the course of the investigation Redacted were to turn from a witness to a subject for any reason, that I would inform Redacted as to the change in the scope. Redacted inquired about knowing in the future, blah, blah, blah. I responded that given the most recent changes with police reform and post, that he would likely be able to receive an unredacted copy of the investigative report when it completes. Okay, that was a lot. I want to back up here. Where was it? This. I discussed that he would be allowed to bring a representative with him for this witness interview. Okay, I think he's talking to Fanning. That could fit right there, right? Sergeant Fanning or John John Fanning, Sergeant John Fanning, inquired if he should place Redacted on administrative leave. So somebody, all right, somebody wants or is asking permission. So it's almost like this officer is asking permission or asking, like, do you think I should have, um, what did I say? Do you think I should have done this? I discussed that he would be allowed to bring a representative, witness interview, inquired if he should place blank on administrative leave. So whoever this person is, wants to know if they should have placed somebody on administrative leave. So I'm assuming Fanning, maybe, or would Fanning be above them? Or maybe the other individuals involved. And this person says, no, he should not. On Thursday, December 9th, 2021, PI La Italian and I met and continued this investigation. On several dates throughout the investigation, he and I had ongoing discussions by cell phone and in person pertaining to the documents related in this case. Collectively, we performed word searches of the PDF that I had received from the MSP, specifically the black light report of communications that the victim, Sandra Birchmore, had with her contacts dating back to 2019. Right, on or about the dates of December 15th, 16th, 17th, and 22nd, I met or conversed with Lieutenant Fanning. Note that Lieutenant Fanning was promoted to lieutenant in the month of December. On December 16th, 2021, while working with PI La Italian, we conversed with Lieutenant Fanning in my office. I returned the MacBook Pro back to Fanning's custody. So Sandra Birchmore's MacBook goes back into police custody. On December 21st, 2021, I met with Redacted for an interview. See person's interview summary below. PI Law Italian and I met Redacted at the MPTC Randolph headquarters building. I had previously arranged for the use of a room in the building. Redacted was accompanied by Redacted. After some small talk, I inquired if Redacted had any idea why he was being interviewed. He said no. I informed him that the investigation concerned the matter of Sandra Birchmore. After some discussion, I offered to allow Redacted to stop the interview if he felt that he needed to reconsider the representation that he had. We began the interview at approximately 10:30 a.m. After approximately 30 minutes of questions, Redacted asked to stop the interview for a break. After consulting with Redacted's lawyer, probably, asked to stop the interview so that he could consult further representation. I obtained the name of the redacted typically uses. I ended the interview advising Redacted that he should communicate with only the attorney on this matter, and I told Redacted that I would arrange for another interview through the Redacted. Are you guys catching any of this? I'm catching it, but it is so hard to read through this with all these redacteds. I communicated with Redacted on December 21st, 22nd about the outcome of the first interview and arranging for a continuation of the interview on the week of the 27th. On Wednesday, December 22nd, I met with Lieutenant Fanning of the MSP and received the data files from Birchmore's computer. This version of the data was exported into the Cellbrite management program. On Wednesday, December 22nd, I received, at my request, all available pet adoption files from Redacted that had been previously stored at the Stoughton Animal Control Shelter. And this is important because there was a animal control officer who was reportedly having inappropriate relations with Sandra also, and possibly even exchanged a cat for some some favors, let's just say. I attempted to locate adoption papers where Sandra Birchmore adopted a cat from the shelter 2 to 3 years earlier. I conducted a complete review of the files that were given to me. No such document was ever located. The files were returned to the ACO. So there was nothing on file, nothing on the record that she got her cat there. Yet we know that she was talking, we'll say she was talking to Josh Heel, who was the animal control officer, and maybe he thought, hey, you could talk to me and I'll get you a cat or something. And that's what he did. All right. So on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, I received confirmation via email from Redacted that we were to meet at MPTC Randolph for a continuation of the first interview. The meeting would take place on Thursday, January 20th, 2022. I neglected to confirm the arranged date with Redacted, and as such, the interview was rescheduled. PI Law Italian and I continued the investigation for several hours. Between January 10th and 11th, I made contact with Detective Lieutenant Kenneth Heffernan of the MSP Crime Scene Services Division. I requested a forensic analysis of the couch that is located, the couch that is located in the redacted. So why is there? Oh, They brought her in there on the couch. After the lieutenant received authorization to assist with this administrative investigation through his chain of command, we arranged for the unit to respond on Friday, January 14th. PI La Italian was also authorized to attend. On Friday, January 14th, I met PI La Italian Detective Lieutenant Kenneth Heffernan of the MSP Crime Laboratory and Forensics Technician Jennifer Preisig of the Redacted. It's all redacted. No clue what they talked about. The meeting of the minds, that's for sure. All right, so on Wednesday, February 9th, 2022, investigator La Italian and I met with Redacted at the Abington Town Hall in a previously reserved conference room. Present with him was present with him was his redacted see persons interview. I don't know. We don't have any of these. We can't even get a complete report without a bunch of redacteds. How are we going to get that? On Thursday, February 17th, I had a conversation with Patrolman's Unit President Barber pertaining to notification of an interview with Officer Matthew Farwell. On Friday, February 18th, 2022, President Barber agreed to accept Farwell's interview notice that he was to hand serve him the notice. So President Barber agreed to accept Farwell's interview notice and he was to hand serve him the notice. On February 22nd, I received an email from Anthony Patrick Hanley, who represents Matthew Farwell. Attorney Hanley confirmed an interview and date of March 7th, 2022. Between the dates of March 22nd and March 11th, between the dates of February 2022, no, 22. Why are words hard? Between the dates of February 22nd and March 11th, through a series of phone calls and emails between Attorney Hanley and myself, and some points through Town Council, Matthew Farwell resigned from his employment with the town effective April 1st, 2022. So Matt Farwell was also on the Town Council. Oh, okay. Meaning he probably had some influence on certain decisions that were made for the police department and other things around the town of Stoughton. Previous communication from his attorney indicated that Farwell could not be participating in an interview in this would not be participating in an interview in this matter. Upon receipt of the resignation letter, Chief McNamara had the resignation stamped by the town clerk, Stephanie Carrera, as official receipt by the town on March 11th. An interview was drafted. Had Matthew Farwell been interviewed, he would have been asked a series of questions as detailed in Exhibit 2. On March 28th, I left a message for witness Redacted inquiring about scheduling an interview for this investigation. Redacted later returned my call and scheduled an interview for Saturday, April 2nd, 2022 at 10 a.m. On or about March 28th, after some previous discussions between myself, PI La Italian, and Chief McNamara, it was decided that I would not participate in the interview or notice. Sorry, my dog's stretching. Freaked me out. She's stretching and sorry. Anyways, um, she's under the blanket and so she's quiet and I forget she's there and then all of a sudden she just moved and it freaked me out for a minute. On or about March 28th, after some previous discussions between myself, PI La Italian, and Chief McNamara, it was decided that I would not participate in the interview or notice of interview of Officer Devine. PI La Italian brought the assistance of PI Robert Fries to assist in the interview of Devine. So La Italian and Fries are going to be doing the interview. On March 12, 2021, Officer Farwell was served notice that he was under investigation. Note, William Farwell was at the time on military leave detailed to his MA Army National Guard unit and had been deployed since for several months. His anticipated return to full duty date was May through July of 2022. On Thursday, March 31st, 2022, I made contact with Redacted in an attempt to get a contact number for Redacted. I later received a call back from Redacted and Redacted cell phone number to me. I then made contact with Redacted by cell phone. We spoke briefly and arranged to meet for an interview early next week. Redacted was at a work event and requested that we communicate via text to arrange a date and time to meet her Redacted home, as she works from home. On April 4th, 2022, it was determined, based on a review of some of the evidence that PI Law Italian and I had obtained, that Officer Devine should be placed on administrative leave. Officer Devine should be placed on administrative leave. Man, those cicadas are loud. A discussion was held with T.M. Robin Grimm, Chief McNamara, and myself in the town manager's office on Monday, April 4th, 2022. I provided an investigative update per the Stoughton Police Department Internal Affairs Policy. Relevant to the decision to place Officer Devine on paid leave was evidence received during the investigation showing that redacted and redacted. It was decided that on the basis of the information available that the interests of the department and the town would be best protected by placing the officer on administrative leave. Officer Devine was served a notice of this at 1545 hours and served a notice of investigative interview that would be conducted by PI Law Italian. Further discussion was held about the role of Officer William Farwell. I reported that it was believed evidence showed that Officer William Farwell had subsequent contact redacted. A determination was made to place William Farwell on paid administrative leave. Chief McNamara called Farwell by phone on April 2nd, 2022, and he later reported to the station. I assisted in the discussion and retrieved his department equipment. Farwell was present with Union President Barber. On Wednesday, April 6th, I interviewed Redacted at her home in Redacted. On Thursday, April 7th, I received a text message from Redacted. The text was a screenshot of the comments section of a Facebook post commenting on the recent Boston Globe article of the resignation of Matthew Farwell and blank of Sandra Birchmore. Post was by a person using the screen name of Redacted. The post alleged that Birchmore's friends had been contacted by members of the Stoughton Police Department after her loss of life, and that the friends were threatened and called liars. So it was a post that alleges Birchmore's friends were called liars and they were threatened by the Stoughton Police Department. Subsequent to this, I had a discussion with MSP Lieutenant Fanning. Well, there's your first problem. Lieutenant Fanning is corrupt and evil. We spoke about the possible implications of MGL Chapter 268, Section 13B, known as the Witness Intimidation Statute. Boy, they love this statute. We resolved that should any witnesses describe a violation of the statute, that I would inform Lieutenant Fanning and reevaluate. Oh my God, they've been weaponizing this statute even before they started weaponizing it against Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy, and the Canton Nine and others who don't like what's going on in Canton. All right, on April 8th, on February. Sorry, let me rephrase that. On Friday, April 8th, 2022, I identified redacted, formerly of redacted. I located a cell number redacted and left her a message at approximately 1325 hours. I attempted her cell again at approximately 1800 hours and did not receive a response. To date, I have not located cell phone number for redacted and will continue to attempt to make contact with Redacted in reference to her Facebook post about threats by members of the Stoughton Police Department. This person was eventually located and briefly interviewed by PI La Italian, so it's in their summary, I guess. On Friday, April 8th, 2022, I left a message for Redacted to attempt to schedule an interview with Redacted. I later heard back from Redacted and we scheduled an interview for 1100 hours on Monday, April 11th, 2022. I received a voicemail from Redacted on Monday, April 11th, 2022, asking that we reschedule. I returned redacted phone call redacted mentioned retaining an attorney. I sent redacted an email confirming the substance of our conversation, asking that the attorney contact me. Alrighty. On Monday, April 11th, I spoke to Redacted. I informed Redacted that Redacted is a witness in this case. After a brief discussion, we arranged to meet at the MPTC at 10:30 on Wednesday, April 13th. Okay. P.I. Fries assisted me in the interview of Redacted. On Thursday, April 14th, I was contacted by Lieutenant Fanning of the MSP. Redacted informed me that Redacted, identified as Redacted, had called the MSP duty office. When Lieutenant Fanning returned the call, Redacted reported that Redacted had been a police explorer in the earlier years of the program. Of the program, Redacted described that Redacted had observed inappropriate behavior by Devine. Observed inappropriate behavior. And the Farwell brothers. So not just Devine. Farwell brothers, too. While they both served as instructors in the program. Oh boy. And Redacted indicated that there had been some hugging, kissing, and inappropriate contact in a closet. Redacted also stated that there were suggestive statements to the effect of, "Come back and see me after you turn 18." That's so gross. And other such activity that suggested, Redacted, Lieutenant Fanning was to brief the ADA in charge of SAs on the matter and get back to me on the statute. So Lieutenant Fanning has a huge role in this. His name comes up quite a bit. On Monday, May 2nd, I received a name and contact number from Chief McNamara for Redacted, who identified herself as Redacted, and reported that Redacted had an incident with Matthew Farwell in August of 2021 and that the matter may have involved a crime on the part of Matthew Farwell. I called Redacted's cell phone number and Redacted returned my call the same afternoon and we spoke on the record reporting the following, and then it's all redacted. I stopped the interview and told Redacted that I would be reaching out to the Massachusetts State Police and that either I or the MSP would be getting back to her with the next steps. The recording was downloaded and saved to a thumb drive. I reached Lieutenant Fanning and he was briefed. Okay. Why does he need to be briefed and why is he not there? Is he the lead investigator? He called me back after consulting with his chain of command and told me that Trooper Kathleen Prince would be reaching out to me to follow up on this allegation. I received a call from Trooper Prince on Tuesday, May 3rd, about this allegation. I hand delivered an information packet to Trooper Prince at the Canton office of the NCDA. A a stack. Even though this guy's been treating him poorly. On Tuesday, May 17th, I was updated by Trooper that she has not successfully made contact with blank to arrange for an interview. I'm assuming the jurors. Trooper Prince indicated that when she contacts the jurors, she the call goes directly to voicemail. Oh, some of them, yeah. Some of them it's hard getting a hold of people, random people. You don't know their work schedules or what, and you don't know their phone habits. All right, so we are just about done with part one. I know this is a long one. All right, so on Tuesday, May 17th, I met with Lieutenant Fanning and an associate of PI La Italian named Michael Bates. So he's the another PI, another detective. Mr. Bates owns a consulting company and specializes in the forensics of internet technology. Mr. Bates, along with PI La Italian and PI Fries, met at the MPTC in Randolph on Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, for strategy and planning discussions. On May 17th, while reviewing with Lieutenant Fanning, there's his name again, while reviewing with Lieutenant Fanning the contents of Sandra Birchmore's laptop, we discovered a conversation thread that was contained in the Facebook Messenger's file. The contact appeared to be either a blocked or anonymous Facebook user. Based on the content and context of the conversation, the user appears to be Officer Robert Devine. Person is an attorney, an employee of the Stoughton Police Department, and discusses, among other things, meeting with Sandra while on duty in a patrol car, redacted. The conversation discussion discusses meeting locations in Stoughton. Sandra also discussed redacted with the Facebook user who is believed to be Divine. After further investigation, the Facebook user was identified as a Marty Riggs. The entire exchange is detailed in Exhibit 30, which, oh, he probably is giving us the bits and pieces. This is Turtle Boy's. Oh, maybe it's not his blog. I usually go to his blog, but maybe it was a different website. I don't know. No, it doesn't look like his blog. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. I had to sit up, readjust. I was sliding down in my seat. All right, so that is going to leave us where we'll stop here for part one. We'll get started right away on more to come regarding these individuals and the Farwell brothers and a lot of redacteds. But it gives us a much better, I know there's a lot of redacted that sometimes is like, what the heck are you saying? But it gives us a much better idea of what was going on. The Stoughton Police Department knew right off the bat, they knew something was fishy when this came up. I wonder if there had been potentially talks beforehand and nothing was ever done, but only because Sandra lost her life is something being done about it now. I don't know. Um, but it's interesting to see how this is going to progress. The family, an aunt of Sandra Birchmore, her mother and her grandmother passed away. Her dad was not in the picture growing up. So, one of her aunts, who she was close with, is trying to sue basically the Norfolk District Attorney's Office, the police of Stoughton, police in Canton, like everybody that was involved in this investigation. And I think she should. And I think she has some really good merit to it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I really look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. We will pick up, like I said, right where we left off, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye now.
If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.